All right. So I researched how the NHL has tried to increase scoring around the league. And so over the past several years, there's been a big debate on whether violence or scoring will bring in more fans. And so I'm just going to look at the scoring aspect of that. And so when I hear people talk about hockey who aren't what I call typical hockey fans, they say they just go for the fights and the violence because no other sport you're allowed to fight and not really be punished that severely. And the reason that bothers me is because there's so many other aspects to be appreciated in the game. And now it doesn't really matter what I think, but I'm here to tell you about what the NHL thinks of the National Hockey League and how they've adapted the rules to hopefully increase scoring. So the NHL has modified the rules and regulations in the game. For example, how big goalie equipment can be in order to make the likelihood of scoring increase, as well as some changes in overtime. And so the question that still remains is that will there be an increase in scoring, but will the goalies get hurt in the process because their equipment is smaller? And so in an article from USA Today, they interviewed Winnipeg Jets goalie Connor Hellebuyck, and he was making a routine save up by his collarbone, and the only difference was that this time it hurt, whereas it normally wouldn't have. And is it really worth it for NHL to put goaltenders in harm's way just to potentially increase scoring and attendance? And so this was due to the fact that NHL regulations have reduced goalies' chest protectors by an inch in order to make them more form-fitting instead of like box-like, so they take up less space. And along with the chest protector reduction, the league has also reduced the size of goalie pants and leg pads. So leg pads can now only cover up 55% of the thigh instead of the whole thigh. And since these new regulations have been implemented, there have been mixed reviews. So most goalies are in favor of these reduction in equipment because it makes them, or they feel that they have to become a better goalie in order to keep up with the league adaptations and such. And another big aspect of hockey is penalties. Without penalties, it would just be a big brawl. So when a penalty occurs, the offending team goes down a player, and they are on the penalty kill, while the other team with a man advantage is on the power play. In the past 2 years, the NHL has started cracking down on the number of penalties called. So for defensemen, slashing is a way that they can direct the shooter into a tougher shooting lane. So slashing is when you take both hands on your stick and you hack the other person, whether it's their arms or their stick. And the NHL has started calling more of these penalties because it not only protects the attacker, but it makes it harder to play defense, which can result in more scoring. Also, when more penalties are called, there are more power plays, which will lead to more man advantages and a higher chance of scoring. So in an article from ESPN comparing the number of slashing penalties in the 2016-2017 season and the 2017-2018 season, through the first 277 games, there were 432 slashing penalties, and at the same point last season, so 2017-2018, only 147 slashing penalties had been whistled. So this shows that the slashing penalties that the referees are calling are increasing by a considerable amount. And lastly, one more thing that the NHL has changed is they've made a gradual transition from 5-on-5 overtime into 4-on-4 overtime. And then once they weren't satisfied with the production of scoring, so now they finally changed it to 3-on-3 overtime. And this all happened in a matter of about 3-4 years. And to prove that this indeed did increase scoring, NHL.com looked at the statistics, which showed that during the 2014-2015 regular season, 136 of the 306 games extending past regulation were decided during 4-on-4 overtime, which is a rate of 44.4%. This season, the rate has vaulted to 70.6%, with 24 of the 34 games tied, resolved in 3-on-3 overtime. And this caused the ice to open up more, creating more space and spread the defense apart, allowing more offensive chances for scoring. And in conclusion, these rules were able to be changed thanks to all of the statistics that have now become available, kind of what Carly mentioned earlier about analytical statistics. And from goalie equipment to penalties to overtime, most aspects of the game have been adapted in order to increase scoring from game to game. Thank you.
I have noticed